Hello, my name is Matt Heimel. I'm the Floodplain Administrator for Missoula County, Montana. And this video today is focusing on our county floodplain map viewer. This is our local online tool for viewing flood hazard information. And this mapping tool is integrated into our entire county GIS system, which allows it to connect not only with floodplain data, but also parcel information, zoning, permits, and other layers. So this tool will really help property owners, realtors, insurance agents, and anyone else who may need it to visualize where mapped flood hazards intersect with specific parcels. And specifically, we're looking at flood hazard areas mapped by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. So there's a few ways to access the Missoula County Floodplain Map viewer. The first way, and we're going to start a little screen share here, is from the Missoula County Floodplain Administration website. Scrolling down to these drop-down menus, one of them here, Online Floodplain Maps, open that window, and then you can click here to view the interactive floodplain map of the entire county. There's another way to get there, and that's on Missoula County Voice, and this is our public engagement page for all things regarding a floodplain mapping update. And you scroll down to important links, keep going down, and there we go, floodplain map viewer. And also you can take a screenshot here. I have a link to the map viewer, but feel free to go to our website or just contact us directly. So let's open the map viewer. So the first thing we'll see is a pop-up disclaimer. And this disclaimer is really initially explaining that certain areas of our map have been updated with FEMA data and includes a preliminary floodplain layer that can be turned off. Now, this preliminary floodplain layer is for the Clark Fork River, Bitterroot River, and Rock Creek. So these floodplain maps were outdated, and we've received preliminary map information. For much more information about specifically what this whole map update entails, please check out our Missoula County Voice page. We have so much information on there. This video is really targeted towards using this floodplain map tool to understand where to click, what to click, and why to click it, essentially. And so we're going to dig a little more into that. So there's other information as well on this disclaimer, and also one of the second tab over, or third tab over, excuse me, has my contact information, our office phone, and our email. I'll leave this on the screen here for a moment so you can get a screenshot, and feel free to reach out to me at any time with any floodplain questions. So then we accept the disclaimer to continue, and here we are with the floodplain map. So as I was saying, as we zoom in, we get some more information about Missoula County floodplain, and I'm just going straight in to an area west of Missoula off of Big Flat Road for an example to show us. So we have a preliminary floodplain overlay that is on by default, and this is shown over the effective floodplain maps. And what we're seeing here is a digital flood insurance rate map layer from July of 2015. That was only digitized from data that was from the 1980s. There are also some other tabs available. If we open up that disclaimer again. So this has some basic information as well, help screen navigating these layers. But I think today we'll walk through some of these to actually go through. So in the upper right, we have a search bar. That's where you can look up a specific address or parcel number. When you enter a parcel, the map will zoom in, center itself, and outline a property boundary. Let's find a property. So let's check out 55 Lakeside Drive. This is a Missoula County-owned property, Lolo Wastewater Treatment Plant. And we can see that some of the main information for the property has opened up. You can use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out, or your arrow keys, And you'll also see that this has some links. You can also open up MapLink, which takes you to the main Missoula County property information system for other information, such as if you want to look up zoning or other land use items for a property. Go back to the floodplain viewer. So one thing that's important here, on the left side of the screen, we can see this little globe icon, left-hand side of the screen where my cursor is. And you can click that to open our layers list. So the preliminary floodplain layers have been added in, and those are again based on preliminary mapping by FEMA for the Clark Fork, Bitterroot, and Rock Creek. We also have effective floodplain layers that are in effect right now. So the current maps will show what is being used. We have this overlay, and that overlay can be turned off just to see the areas that are in the current floodplain mapping. The overlay here, and we can see with this red hash mark, is really intended to show areas that are affected by preliminary mapping by FEMA. And this overlay is really a combination of any flood zone, whether it be a 100-year zone AE or 500-year floodplain. We only wanted to show what areas are affected to actually go in and see what those preliminary flood zones are. You can dig into these layers, which I will show in just a minute. But first, let's look a little more at the effective floodplain layers, turning that overlay off. So in the floodplain layers, we can see some optional things that we can toggle. We can look at approximate base flood elevations, which we can see some shown on the screen there. Those are the approximate water surface elevations during a base flood or a 100-year flood, or a flood with a 1% chance in any given year. You can also turn on actual studied cross sections. So if we zoom or pan over to the left here, we see cross section X for the Bitterroot River, and that is something we can dig into the flood insurance study. Now, these are really for reference. And if somebody wants to then dig into what these base flood elevations and cross sections and flood zones really mean for any given property, please get in touch with us and we can help you understand all of that. One item on by default is this number you can see in the middle of the screen, 1465E. That is a firm panel number. So a flood insurance rate map is essentially split into like a grid, a rectangular panels. And this is just telling us that this panel number for this area is 1465E. That helps us find where we are when we're looking again into the flood insurance study and trying to figure out how flood hazards apply to a certain area. There are some other layers in here as well. So you can see there's some different symbols up Lakeside Drive north of Lolo. These are showing us areas where there are letters of map change or elevation certificates. These are different documents. So the letters of map change can be a letter of map amendment, letter of map revision. Essentially, those are letters from FEMA about whether areas were inadvertently included or then removed from the floodplain for insurance purposes. And these asterisk symbols give us elevation certificates. That shows where a licensed surveyor has prepared certification of structural elevations. There's technical facts that go into all of this. So again, if anyone wants to look into those, please get in touch with us. So we can turn off the effective floodplain layers and then turn on preliminary layers on the left-hand side. So to turn layers on and off again, you can see these little kind of an eyeball icon that says visibility when you hover over it. That turns areas or entire groups off and on. And if you go to preliminary floodplain layers on the left-hand side, that can be opened up again. So we start off with just the overlay, but then if we look at the layers available under there, we have preliminary flood zone overlay 2025 can be turned off. We can turn on preliminary flood zone 2025. This actually gives us the floodplain designations that were made by FEMA for the preliminary maps. And as you can see, when compared to the overlay with these red hatch marks was just this aggregate entire area affected. If you turn that off, then you see what those actual zones are. And just like the effective maps, we can even turn on base flood elevations for the preliminary maps. And again, these will correspond to certain cross sections that are studied in the preliminary flood insurance study, which please contact us again if there are any questions. And here's our contact information again on the screen. No mention of floodplain would be complete without mentioning that floodsmart.gov is an excellent resource for all things related to flood insurance. The floodplain maps help guide the development in flood hazard areas. However, it also informs where that risk can be insured with federally backed flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program, and floodsmart.gov is where you can either get a quote or find out all kinds of other great information about the National Flood Insurance Program and the availability of flood insurance. So the County Floodplain Viewer is intended to make flood hazard information accessible to everyone, whether you're a homeowner worried about flooding, or you're concerned about flood insurance requirements, or you're an engineer working on a plan to develop an area. And if you have any questions or run into issues, you don't have to try to navigate these maps by yourself. Floodplain Administration staff is here to help, so please call us, again, 258-4657, area code 406-258-4657, or email us at floodplain@missoulacounty.us. Again, that's on the screen here. You can even drop by and visit us at the office. We're at 127 East Main Street in Missoula on the second floor. So these maps will help you understand the flood risk, and we're here to help you understand what to do with that information. So thank you and have a great day.